All right, taking a look today at section 13.3. This is called Truth in Lending. We're going to take a look at basically like what happens if you were to pay off loans early. That's kind of the gist of what we're looking at. And the first thing we're going to look at is called the Truth in Lending Act. The Truth in Lending Act was passed in 1968. If you've printed these off, then you've got all the notes for it. You don't have to write a whole lot today. And there's a ton of writing today. So if you're one of those people who likes to write all this down, you might need to actually catch up on that afterwards because we have a ton of writing. The Truth in Lending Act passed in 1968 addresses two major issues. One, how can we tell the true annual interest rate that the lender is charging, which we've talked a little bit about that already when we talked about APR and APY. And then secondly, how much the finance charge that we're entitled to save if we pay off a loan early. And there's different ways that that can be calculated. And so we're going to look at a couple of those today. All right, so the first thing that we're going to take a look at is this table that I handed out to you, okay? So this table, Table 5, is known as the true annual interest rate. It's standardized by the Truth in Lending Act. And there's other ways that you can do these types of problems. This is a general way to do so. And as you take a look at this particular table, you can see that it doesn't have like all the months and all the interest rates. And it's not super clear, but I hope you can still read it. Along the top, we have 4.5, we have 5, we have 5.5, we have 6. Can you see that sort of in that grayed out area of the sheet that I gave you? It's kind of hard to read. It didn't copy very well. On the left-hand side, however, you can see the number of months, 6, 12, 18, and so forth. So again, if you want to know something about 7 months, that's not particularly helpful, but 6 is a close estimate. So, if you wanted to know something about 5.2%, it's not exactly in the table, but something between the 5 and the 5.5 would be what we would be looking at. So this is what we're going to take a look at today. So we're going to start by taking a look at Ann and Andy again. Do you remember them? We talked about them before. Ann and Andy from section 13.2. They're the ones who bought the refrigerator. So shortly after the refrigerator died, the dishwasher died. It's known as Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. So they've got the second thing that has died. Again, they decide to finance a new dishwasher. The dishwasher costs $500 with $100 down. But this loan was only a 6% add-on interest rate for 18 months. And we're going to find the APR for their loan. So we're going to take a look at the different pieces, kind of in a step-by-step process in doing though. So, and this table will come into play pretty quickly in this particular lesson. So starting with, we're going to find the amount that they financed. Okay, so the dishwasher cost how much? $500. And how much did they have to pay? $100. So what is the amount that they're going to finance? Yeah, so it's the $500 cost minus the $100 down payment. We have a $400 financing value. The finance charge, that is the interest on the loan. We talked about that last time. That's that same formula as finding simple interest. So we're looking at the I equal PRT formula. So the P, that's the amount they're financing from step 1, which was $400. The rate, that's the add-on rate, which is 6%, and as a decimal is 0.06, right? And then the time is how many years they're doing this for. And what does that say in the problem? Because it doesn't exactly say it. 18 months, which is 1.5 years. Good. All right, so grab a calculator and multiply those out. So far, we haven't done anything new. So just like what we did last time, we've just got a different setup. So what is their finance charge for their dishwasher? Yeah, 36. It's not per month. That would be 36 total for the whole loan. Okay, so they're borrowing $400, and then they're going to pay $36 for the luxury of having borrowed it. That's the add-on interest that they're getting the finance charge. We're going to actually find the finance charge per 100. So that's step 3. It looks like it's kind of a funny thing, but it's actually how H is defined. So H is the finance charge per 100. I don't think H is actually written on your paper, so if not, go ahead and make sure and write it here. This is called H. H is the finance charge divided by the amount financed. Both of those things we know so far. We'll put them in a minute. And then we're multiplying it by $100. Okay, this is a formula that you will need to use anytime you're trying to find H. So what was my finance charge?
36.
That's 36. What is the amount that we financed?
400.
That's the 400. And then we're going to multiply that by $100. Okay, so So grab a calculator, take a look at 36 divided by 400 times $100. And what will we get? It's 9. It happens to be a nice whole number. That doesn't always happen. Okay, so let's just, share the numbers that we put in kind of thing, not anything in general. It's 9. Okay, so here's what we do. This is the first use for your table, okay? So you're going to take this table, and you're going to locate, and I'm going to write these things down too on my next screen so that as you're looking back at this later, here's my paper. Actually, I got it in here. I've forgotten that. You're going to look at row 18. Why would we think we would look at row 18? It's 18 months. Okay, so we're looking at row 18, and we want to find the closest value to H equals 9. Okay, so looking on row 18, let me change colors real quick here. It's bright enough, I think. So we're on row 18, and we're going to travel over until we find the closest value that we have to 9. So we have something slightly smaller than 9, it's 8.93, and something slightly bigger than 9, it's 9.35, but one of them is closer than the other. Which one's closer? The 8.93. So the 8.93 is the one that we are finding as our closest value in row 18, right, the 18-month row, to 9. And if we go up to the top of that column, that value is the APR. Oops, I did it again. Here we go. So the APR at the top, or the value at the top is the APR, is the 11%, and that's the APR for our problem. Notice, that is nearly double the add-on rate, correct? The add-on rate, R, that we were given before was 6%. It's not exactly double, right? But it's almost double what we were looking at before. So you might say, well, why does it matter? Well, it might matter because if you were looking at comparing this to another loan offer, and that other loan offer was not add-on interest, but instead it was simple interest with an APR of 7%, you might think that's not a good deal, when in fact it actually is. Because this APR is actually 11%, not 6%, that it looked like when we were given the interest rate, right? That's why it matters. It allows us to actually find the real way, a real way anyway, to compare different offers if you were trying to loan or borrow, either way, money. All right, so let's take a look at that continuing process. So now we're going to look at the second part of the Truth in Lending Act, which talks about what if I pay something off early? If I pay it off early, how much am I entitled to save, okay, instead? So notice these are on installment loans, right? These aren't on the consumer credit kind of stuff when we were looking at like credit card payments, because this is not how a revolving credit works. This is an installment credit. All right, so here is unearned interest. There's two different methods we're going to learn for unearned interest. The first one is the actuarial method. So for an installment loan, right, that's where you have monthly payments or something like that, requiring monthly payments specifically, which is paid off earlier than originally scheduled. Okay? So you end up getting a nice, gift from your parents, or maybe somebody passes away and they leave you money, whatever it is, and you want to pay something off. How much are you entitled to save by paying it off early? So R is your monthly payment. So R for regular, that's what they're using it for. K is what they're using as the remaining number of scheduled monthly payments after the current payment. So let's say you're on payment number 5. You don't count that one. You count it as though you're paying. And then after that, it's how many are left. How many payments are left after the one you're currently paying. And then H is the finance charge per 100. That's basically what we did on the previous screen, right? We're going to look at a little bit of a difference on that one here in a second, but that's what we're looking at. And then the way we calculate the unearned interest is that we multiply K times R, and it's H divided by 100 plus H. That's our calculation. Make sure you have that written down because that's not written on your paper, the formula here. So what's the payoff amount? This is the unearned interest, because payoff is what you want to do at the end, right? You have to pay the thing off, and then you've saved some amount of interest. So the payoff amount then, a lot of this description here at the top is the same as before. Installment loan requiring regular monthly payments can be paid off early, along with the current payment. If the original loan had K additional payments scheduled, and the unearned interest is U, so all of that is the same setup as the pieces above it, then disregarding any possible prepayment penalty. Do you know what a prepayment penalty is? Have you ever heard of that? It's fabulous. It's a penalty that you have to pay if you pay it off early. It's exactly what it says, and they exist. That's not a made-up thing.
Is it usually an expensive amount?
I don't really know. I have not encountered any loans that I'm willing to pay that would do that. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dave Ramsey, but Dave Ramsey is how my family lives. So if you ever have an opportunity to listen to him, he's a financial advisor. And he basically talks about how and when you should and shouldn't borrow money. I mean, that's a big component, and about how to pay off debts that you have. So our family does a lot of Dave Ramsey stuff, which means we don't borrow any money at all. And so we have a house loan, and that is the only loan that we have, and we are trying as mightily as we can to pay that off. But adding kids to our family slowed the process down. You can imagine that, right? Yeah. So a prepayment penalty, though, is not a good thing, right? It would not be a good thing. So be aware if you are borrowing money for something, is that in the loan paperwork that you're signing? Because if it is, you at least want to know what it is, right? You should. And then you can decide whether or not that's still a loan that you're willing to take out. Okay, so avoiding any possible prepayment penalty. The payoff amount is calculated as follows. So we take K plus 1, right? K is the amount of loan or amount of payments we have left. Plus 1 is because we're paying our current payment as well. Okay, so K plus 1. Times your regular monthly payment, how much you're paying every month. And then you subtract off the unearned interest, right? The interest that the lending institution, the bank or whoever, didn't really earn because you didn't have it in their institution borrowed for that entire amount of time. All right, so we're going to take a look at finding one such quantity. Anne. Back to Anne. She gets a new job, and it came with a signing bonus. Did you know those things exist? You've heard of some of those. They do. They do in very odd situations sometimes, too. For the past couple of years, nurses have had very nice signing on bonuses because a lot of people left the medical profession in the midst of all the COVID stuff, right? It happened. So they were signing on bonuses for nurses. They're signing on bonuses for lots of jobs, though. So that's something to sort of be on the lookout for if you're in the job market. What kind of signing bonuses might you have? She has a signing bonus, and in an effort to get their finances under control, which they obviously need because they've got a loan for a refrigerator and their dishwasher now, right? They decide to pay off the dishwasher early. They had originally agreed to 18 months, and they have made 5 payments so far. So 5 payments are down, and they've got our payments to begin with. Wants us to find on part A the unearned interest. So unearned interest, let me just write down the formula that we're needing to use from above. The unearned interest is K times R times H over 100, plus H. So I need K, I need R, and I need H in order to do this problem, agreed? And H is not what you're expecting it to be. We calculated H just a moment ago to be 9, right? It's actually not going to be 9 as we're working through the problem for unearned interest. I'll explain in a sec. Let's actually do the pieces that are a little bit more straightforward, though. K is a pretty straightforward one. It's the first one listed, too. K should be how many monthly payments after the one we're on that we had. So how many monthly payments did they sign up for? 18. And what payment are they on? 6. They're on payment 6. They've paid off 5. They're currently on the middle, in the middle of payment 6. So when I do 18 minus 6, I have 12. There are 12 monthly payments that are yet to be made that we're not currently on. It's a little bit of a caveat, keep in mind, right? It's not minus the 5 we paid. It's minus 5 plus 1. It's minus our 6. Okay, that's K. R, our regular monthly payment. All right, well, let's go back and take a look. How much did they borrow? 400. And what was the finance charge? $36. So how much are they actually going to be paying back if they paid the whole thing off as expected? $436. Okay, so 400 was the amount they borrowed. The 36 was the finance charge. And they're paying it off as originally planned in 18 months. So we really have 436 divided by 18. So what is 436 divided by 18? 24, 22, okay? And we'll use to the nearest decimal, like money to 2 decimal places like normal, okay? That's what we'll be using. If there's any need to round, that's how we round. So we have K, we have R, and I told you H does something weird. And now we're to the point of talking about H. Okay, so if you take a look in your table, we're no longer on row 18, okay? We're actually going to be on row 12. So do you see where the 12 is showing up in what I've done so far? Yeah? What is 12 coming from? It's how many payments we have that we're not going to make, right? We're going to skip out. We're not going to skip out of them, but we're going to pay them early, right? So the H value has to come from the, let me write it this way, is new, and it's from K equal 12 in our table. So when we're looking at unearned interest, we're looking at the new value for K in the table. So take a look in your table. Let me see if I can flip back over here. There it is. So we're now on row 12. This is my row that I'm on. We're on row 12. And we're taking a look over in this one as we're taking a look, but we're still in the same 11% column. It's still an 11% APR. So instead of being at 8.93, where am I now? 6 points. Yeah, I'm at 6.06. So I'm still in the same column, right, the 11% column, but I'm no longer on row 18, I'm on row 12. So my H has now changed from 8.93 to 6.06. Okay, so flip back over here. So my H will be in the same 11% column. Is that spelled right? Column? It looks weird. You know how that happens sometimes, right? Words just start to look weird. You get column. And so H is 6.06. Okay, everybody good? We have H, we have R, we have K. That's everything we need to find U. So we're going to find U now. So my U value is K, which is 12, times R, which is 24.22, times H, which is 6.06 on top. And then I have 100 plus 6.06, or 106.606 on bottom. Running a little bit off the paper, so let's do that. Okay, grab calculator. You're going to want it. So when we take 12 times 24.22 times 6.06 and divide it by 106.06. Remember, this is a money amount, so we still want to use the 2 decimals. What do you get? Mm-hmm. 16.61. Okay, we went through all these steps and we went through all this stuff. What did we find? What is 16.61 in the context of this problem?
Unearned interest.
Unearned interest, which is what?
The amount of money that a company won't do?
It's the amount of money that the company won't get from Ann and Andy, right? That's what it is. It's the savings that Ann and Andy get. By paying the loan off early, they save $16.61 of the $36 that they originally had thought they would have to pay. Does that make sense? That's what they save. I think it asks us then, for our payoff amount. So this is how much they're saving. So we had a formula as well for payoff. The formula we had for payoff looked like this. I'll write it down again too, since I keep switching screens. It was K plus 1 times the regular monthly payment R minus U. K was what? 12. So I have 12 plus 1, or you could write in 13 if you wish. R, the regular monthly payment we found on the previous part of the problem, which was $24.22. And then we subtract off the unearned interest. That was $16.61. And this is what we would owe the bank if they use the actuarial method for finding unearned interest. And what is the total that we would owe in that sixth payment? $298.25. Now I mentioned this last time and I'll mention it again. Can you see how easy it would be to mess up the decimal places at the end? Like we're rounding at some point, and if we round incorrectly somewhere and we carry the rounding error, like those things they're expected to happen. My math lab does have a level of accuracy that sometimes will tolerate the decimals being off, and sometimes it won't. And so on your quizzes, on your exams, this is definitely a place where I end up having to award credit because you're off by a penny. I think we can tolerate being off by a penny, right? Like that's not a big deal. So I will go in and look for those things on quizzes and on exams. I don't do it on the homework, so pay attention and try to be careful with the homework since you have multiple attempts, but I will do that on the quizzes and exams. All right, there is another method for finding unearned interest, and it's actually a little easier. And it gives you a very close value, by the way, to the first one. So this is actually called the rule of 78. So this is a second way of finding unearned interest. So for a closed-end loan, that means that you've borrowed the money and you're paying it all back, requiring monthly payments, hence we're talking about an installment loan. And then we're paying it off earlier than scheduled. Okay, so F is the finance charge. We've figured out that for Ann and Andy's dishwasher a minute ago. N is the number of payments originally scheduled. And K is the remaining number of scheduled payments. Then the formula for finding unearned interest is K times K plus 1 divided by N times N plus 1 times the finance charge. No table needed. And remember, there are some limitations to the table, right? There are. I can't do just any month on here, right? I've got some limitations with it. So there's no limitations with the rule of 78 like there is with our table. That said, please pay attention carefully when you're doing the homework problems because it'll ask you for one or the other and you need to make sure you're using the right method. Agreed? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to look at Ann and Andy's and we're just going to see how close it is to the 1661 we just got with the payoff of 298, whatever it was. Okay. So we have the same information as before. We're going to use the rule of 78. So the unearned interest formula, I'll write it in, is U equals K times K plus 1 over N times N plus 1. And then I'm multiplying it by F. So we need to identify what is K, what is N, and what is F. Okay, so we already found K once before. It's the same thing. So what was K? It's 12. We've talked about N, though I haven't written it down because the other formula didn't need it. What is N? 18. It's the number of payments we agreed to originally. And we found the finance charge earlier as well. It was 36. So these are all quantities we've found for other purposes along the way. Now, maybe I should mention that every problem will have you refined those. Agreed? So I'm using the same information so I can show you a new piece of information, I guess, or whatever. But every problem you get, you're going to have to calculate that F again. You're going to have to find that K again. You're going to have to find the N again. All right? Okay, so let's use those. So K is 12. So I have 12 times 13. N is 18. So I have 18 times 19. And F is 36. Now, do be careful when you're multiplying, depending on how your calculator does its order of operations and so forth. You want to make sure that the 12 and the 13 get multiplied and that the 18 and the 19 get multiplied, and you don't end up accidentally multiplying 19 by like the fraction that came before it or something like that. So be a little bit careful with that. What do you get for the unearned interest with this rule of 78? 1642. That's really close to 1661, isn't it? It is. It's very close. Finding the payoff amount is found the same way with either method. So we had this written down before, and we will write it one more time. To find the payoff, We take K plus 1, we multiply it by our regular monthly payments, and we subtract the unearned interest. So that's the same for both methods. K is 12, so this is 12 plus 1 or 13. The regular monthly payment was what? $24.22. And my unearned interest this time is $16.42. So using those pieces of information, what's the payoff? $298.44. And again, that should be very close to what we had because the unearned interest is very close to what we had. $298.44 compared to $298.25. It's pretty close. Okay, pennies off. Any questions on that?